The Buddhist Guide to a Happy Life. By a lifelong researcher in Buddhist philosophy. In the vast and varied landscape of human aspiration, no desire is more universal than the simple, profound wish to be happy. It is the silent engine that drives our endeavors, the implicit goal of our strivings, and the metric by which we often measure the worth of our lives. Yet, for all our relentless pursuit, a deep and lasting happiness remains remarkably elusive for many. We chase it in our achievements, seek it in our possessions, and expect it from our relationships, only to find that the joy we grasp is fleeting, fragile, and forever contingent on the shifting sands of external circumstance. After more than 4 decades dedicated to the study of Buddhist philosophy and practice, I have come to see that this common predicament arises not from a failure of effort, but from a fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of happiness itself. The Buddha, in his unparalleled role as the great physician of the mind, did not offer a teaching on how to acquire more of what we think will make us happy. Instead, he offered a radical and transformative redefinition of happiness altogether. He taught that true, authentic well-being, a quality the ancient Pali texts call sukha, is not a prize to be won from the world, but an innate quality of a mind that has been purified, balanced, and liberated. This is not a guide to a life of perpetual pleasure or the denial of suffering. The Buddhist path is unflinchingly realistic about the existence of pain and difficulty. Rather, it is a guide to cultivating a form of happiness that can coexist with life's inevitable challenges, a deep, resilient, and unconditional joy that springs from an inner source. It is a happiness that is not found, but cultivated. This article is an in-depth exploration of this cultivation. We will journey through the Buddha's timeless framework, moving from a radical re-evaluation of happiness to the practical, systematic methods for its development. We will explore the foundational role of ethical living, the inner bliss generated through mental training, the boundless joy of a compassionate heart, and the unshakable freedom that comes from true wisdom. This is not a collection of life hacks or positive affirmations, it is a profound, coherent, and time-tested guide to building a life of genuine, sustainable, and meaningful happiness from the inside out. Part 1. Redefining happiness, beyond the pursuit of pleasure. The first and most crucial step on the Buddhist path to happiness is to clearly understand what we are aiming for. Our conventional, modern understanding of happiness is largely hedonistic. It is the maximization of pleasant experiences and the minimization of painful ones. We are conditioned to believe that happiness is synonymous with pleasure, excitement, and the constant gratification of our desires. The Buddha's diagnosis of this approach is startling and counterintuitive. This relentless pursuit of pleasure is, paradoxically, a primary cause of our unhappiness. This is the core of the second noble truth, which identifies the cause of our suffering, dukkha, as craving, tanha. The more we frantically chase after pleasant feelings, the more we suffer, for 3 key reasons. Pleasure is impermanent. Every pleasant experience, by its very nature, is fleeting. The delicious taste of a meal, the thrill of a new romance, the joy of a success, all of it is temporary. When we stake our happiness on these transient states, we are setting ourselves up for inevitable disappointment and a constant, low-grade anxiety about their passing. It breeds dissatisfaction. The pleasure-seeking mind suffers from a built-in tolerance mechanism. What was thrilling yesterday is merely pleasant today and boring tomorrow. This requires us to constantly seek out new and more intense stimuli to get the same hit of happiness, trapping us on what modern psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. We are forever running but never arriving at a place of lasting contentment. It makes us averse to pain. The more attached we are to pleasure, the more terrified we become of its opposite. We develop a low tolerance for discomfort, boredom, and pain. We spend an enormous amount of mental and emotional energy trying to avoid, suppress, or distract ourselves from unpleasantness, which only serves to amplify our suffering when it inevitably arises. The Buddhist concept of sukha stands in stark contrast to this fragile, pleasure-based happiness. Sukha points to a deeper sense of well-being, flourishing, and inner contentment that is not dependent on the constant influx of pleasant stimuli. It is a happiness that arises from a well-trained and purified mind. It is the difference between the frantic, fleeting excitement of a child in a candy store and the calm, Abiding joy of a master musician who has perfected their craft. There are, of course, wholesome pleasures that the Buddha encouraged, the pleasure of generosity, the joy of friendship, the bliss of a calm mind in meditation. But the key is the relationship to that pleasure. The goal is not to eliminate pleasure, but to untether our fundamental well-being from the desperate need for it. The path to true sukha begins not by changing our external world to match our desires, but by transforming our inner world to be free from the tyranny of desire itself. Part 2. The Foundation of Happiness, the Role of Ethical Living, Sila. A surprising, yet essential, starting point on the Buddhist guide to a happy life is the cultivation of ethical living, or sila. It may seem that our moral conduct is unrelated to our personal happiness, but the Buddha understood that an unshakable sense of inner well-being cannot be built on a foundation of causing harm. Sila is the practice of consciously aligning our actions of body and speech with the intention of harmlessness, creating a life of profound integrity. This is not about following a set of arbitrary rules to gain favor with a deity. It is a profoundly psychological practice aimed at creating a mind free from the coarse mental effluence of guilt, shame, and remorse. When our actions are in conflict with our deeper values, we create a state of inner turmoil. We are plagued by the memory of our transgressions. We live in fear of our actions being discovered, and we erode our own self-respect. An agitated mind, a mind at war with itself, cannot be a happy mind. The core of this ethical training is found in 3 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. Right speech, samavaka. This is the habit of abstaining from the 4 primary forms of harmful speech. Lying, which destroys trust and creates a burden of deception. Divisive speech, which turns people against one another. Harsh speech, which causes pain and fosters resentment. And idle chatter, which fills the mind with triviality and distraction. Instead, one cultivates speech that is truthful, kind, unifying, and meaningful. Right action, samakamanta. This involves abstaining from actions that cause physical harm, killing or harming living beings, taking what is not freely given, and engaging in sexual misconduct. Instead, one cultivates actions rooted in reverence for life, generosity, and respect. Right livelihood, samaajiva. This is the practice of ensuring that the way we earn our living is not a source of harm to ourselves or others. It means avoiding professions that trade in weapons, living beings for slaughter, intoxicants, or poisons, and instead choosing work that is, at best, beneficial and, at least, benign. The happiness of blamelessness. The direct result of cultivating sila is a state the Buddha called avapadasara, a mind free from remorse. It is a deep, quiet, and powerful form of happiness. It is the joy of knowing that you can look back on your day, your week, and your life with a clear conscience. It is the security of knowing that your words and deeds are a source of peace, not conflict. This happiness of blamelessness is not a dramatic or ecstatic feeling, but it is a stable and essential foundation upon which all other forms of happiness are built. Without it, our attempts at meditation and finding inner peace are like trying to build a house on a shaky and fractured foundation. Part 3. The inner source of happiness, cultivating a calm and clear mind, samadhi. With the foundation of ethical living secured, the Buddhist path to happiness turns inward, to the direct cultivation of the mind through the practice of meditation, or samadhi. This is where we begin to discover that the mind itself, when properly trained, is a source of profound pleasure and joy that is far more reliable and satisfying than anything the external world can offer. The untrained mind is a monkey mind, restless, distracted, and constantly pulled hither and thither by sensory inputs and internal chatter. This state of inner chaos is a primary source of our unhappiness. The training of samadhi is the process of taming this monkey mind, of gathering its scattered energies and bringing it to a state of calm, focused unity. The primary technique for this is mindfulness of breathing, anapanasati. The practice is deceptively simple. One sits in a comfortable, dignified posture. One brings one's attention to the natural sensation of the breath as it enters and leaves the body. When the mind wanders away into thought, which it inevitably will, one gently and non-judgmentally notices the wandering and kindly guides the attention back to the breath. This simple act, repeated patiently and persistently, works like a magical balm on the agitated mind. As the mind begins to settle on the breath, the inner chatter subsides, the waves of obsessive thinking begin to calm, and the natural clarity of the mind, like the clear water beneath the waves, is revealed. The arising of meditative joy, piti and sukha. As the practice deepens, a remarkable thing happens. The mind, now unburdened by the usual anxieties and distractions, begins to generate its own internal sources of happiness. The texts describe a progression of joyful states that arise naturally from concentration. Piti, often translated as rapture or joy. This is a more energetic, exhilarating feeling. It can manifest as goosebumps, a sense of lightness, or waves of intense pleasure coursing through the body. Sukha. This is the sukha we are aiming for, a deeper, more tranquil, and all-pervading sense of blissful contentment and well-being. It is less excited than piti, more of a deep and satisfying calm that permeates the entire mind and body. The experience of these states is a pivotal moment in one's practice. It is the direct, experiential proof that happiness is not solely dependent on getting what we want in the external world. We discover that there is a profound, high-quality pleasure available at any time, simply by calming and unifying the mind. This discovery is deeply liberating. It lessens our desperate dependency on sensory pleasures and gives us access to a refuge of inner peace and joy that we can return to again and again, regardless of our external circumstances. Part 4. The Heart of Happiness, the boundless joy of a compassionate heart, the Brahma Viharas. A happy life, in the Buddhist view, is not a solitary or self-centered affair. The deepest and most expansive forms of joy arise from the cultivation of a warm, open, and boundless heart. The practices for achieving this are known as the 4 divine abodes or Brahma Viharas. These are 4 sublime emotional states that, when cultivated, systematically replace the states of mind that cause our greatest unhappiness, anger, cruelty, jealousy, and attachment, with their radiant, joy-producing opposites. 1. Loving kindness, metta, the joy of goodwill. Metta is the sincere and unconditional wish for all beings, including oneself, to be happy and well. It is the direct antidote to anger, hatred, and ill will. A mind consumed by anger is a mind in a state of intense suffering. It is constricted, agitated, and painful. A mind suffused with metta is spacious, peaceful, and joyful. The practice involves the silent repetition of phrases of well-wishing, systematically radiating this feeling of goodwill from oneself outwards to encompass the entire world. The happiness of metta is the simple, profound joy of a heart free from animosity. 2. Compassion, karuna, the joy of a tender heart. Compassion is the heart's natural response to suffering. It is the wish for all beings to be free from their pain. It is the antidote to cruelty, apathy, and indifference. While it may seem counterintuitive that focusing on suffering could lead to happiness, karuna is not a state of sorrowful pity. It is a feeling of empowered tenderness. It is the joy of a brave and open heart that is not afraid to connect with the reality of pain. It overcomes the painful state of separation and fear, replacing it with a sense of profound, loving connection and the strength that comes from a willingness to help. 3. Sympathetic joy, mudita, the joy of celebration. Mudita is the practice of taking genuine joy in the happiness, success, and good fortune of others. It is the direct and powerful antidote to jealousy and envy, 2 of the most corrosive and painful emotions. A mind afflicted by envy is a mind that is constantly comparing and feeling less than, a state of perpetual lack and resentment. Mudita flips this entirely. By learning to celebrate the happiness of others as if it were our own, we multiply our opportunities for joy 1,000-fold. The world is no longer a field of competitors, but a vast landscape of potential delight. The success of a friend or even a stranger becomes a direct source of our own happiness. 4. Equanimity, upekkha, the joy of balance. Equanimity is the profound and peaceful joy of a balanced and unshakable mind. It is the ability to meet all of life's inevitable ups and downs, what the texts call the 8 worldly winds of gain and loss, pleasure and pain, praise and blame, fame and disrepute, with an even and spacious heart. It is the antidote to the roller coaster of emotional reactivity, of being elated one moment and devastated the next. This is not a cold indifference. It is a warm and wise acceptance of the impermanent nature of life. A deep peace that comes from untethering our well-being from the need for conditions to be a certain way. It is the happiness of ultimate resilience and freedom. Part 5. The unshakable happiness, the freedom of wisdom, prajna. The foundation of ethics, the inner bliss of concentration, and the boundless joy of a compassionate heart all create the perfect conditions for the arising of the deepest, most unshakable form of happiness. This is the happiness that comes from wisdom, or prajna. This is not intellectual knowledge, but a direct, penetrating insight into the fundamental nature of reality. This wisdom liberates the mind completely from the root causes of all suffering. This insight is focused on seeing for ourselves the three marks of existence. Impermanence, anicca, the wisdom that sees that all things are in a constant state of flux. Nothing is permanent. Unsatisfactoriness, dukkha, the wisdom that sees that trying to find lasting happiness in impermanent things is inherently stressful and doomed to failure. Non-self, anatta, the ultimate wisdom that sees that there is no fixed, solid, independent, I, or self, at the center of our experience. What we call our self is a dynamic, interdependent process. How wisdom leads to ultimate happiness. When these truths move from being ideas to being direct, lived realities, the entire structure of our suffering collapses. When we truly see impermanence, we naturally stop clinging. We can enjoy life's pleasures without the desperate, anxious need for them to last. We can endure life's pains with the calm knowledge that they too will pass. This letting go brings an immense sense of relief and peace. When we truly see the nature of non-self, the entire ego-driven project of life is revealed to be based on a case of mistaken identity. The endless and exhausting effort to protect, defend, and aggrandize this fictional self is finally laid down. The anger that arises when I am insulted, the anxiety when my future is threatened, the jealousy when someone has what I want, all of these begin to dissolve. The happiness that arises from wisdom is the happiness of liberation. It is the joy of a mind that is no longer at war with reality. It is no longer caught in the exhausting cycle of chasing and running, of hope and fear. It is a mind that has found its true home in a spacious, clear, and compassionate awareness. This is the ultimate, unshakable sukha the Buddha spoke of, the happiness that is completely independent of conditions. The peace that surpasses all understanding. Conclusion. The art and science of a happy life. The Buddhist guide to a happy life is a call to action. It is a declaration that genuine, lasting well-being is not a matter of luck or circumstance, but a matter of skill. It is an art and a science of mental cultivation that can be learned and practiced by anyone, regardless of their background or beliefs. It begins with a radical redefinition of our goal, shifting our focus from the fleeting pursuit of pleasure to the cultivation of a deep and authentic inner flourishing. This cultivation rests upon the non-negotiable foundation of an ethical life, which brings the joy of a clear conscience. From this stable ground, we train the mind through meditation to discover its own innate capacity for a bliss that is independent of the external world. We then systematically warm and expand the heart through the practices of love, compassion, and sympathetic joy, dissolving the inner toxins of hatred and envy. Finally, all of these streams converge into the great river of wisdom, the liberating insight that sees reality as it is and frees the mind, once and for all, from the chains of its own delusions. This is a gradual path, a journey of a lifetime. It requires patience, diligence, and a compassionate heart, but the teachings of the Buddha stand as a timeless testament. A 2.600-year-old guide assuring us that a life of profound happiness and peace is not a distant dream, but an ever-present and achievable possibility for all who are willing to walk the path.